Hi, guys. Welcome to Real Food Recovery. We are here with what I normally would call a special guest, and that's how we introduce all of our guests. But actually, today we have an extra special guest. And so I will, before we get to him, I will actually turn it over to Jamie and let her do the introductions before we get to him. How
Thanks,
you
Kate.
doing, Jamie?
I'm doing well, doing well. Very excited to be here as always with you and excited to introduce our special guest, Dr. Joel Fuhrman. It is truly a dream come true, Dr. Fuhrman. I have been following you in your work for many years. Your work has had a huge impact on my own recovery from food addiction and my own recovery and regaining my health after 33 years of obesity and morbid obesity. And it's no surprise that we also share our New Jersey roots. Dr. Fuhrman and I'm very grateful for just knowing that his presence was in the area that I grew up in for so many years. And now he's taken his retreat and his program out west. And I really appreciate, though, that there's so many lasting effects of his work in that central New Jersey area that I grew up in and call home. So again, from one Jersey into another, thank you, Dr. Fuhrman. Uh, Dr. Fuhrman is a board certified family physician. He's a seven times New York best-selling author and New York Times best-selling author, excuse me, and internationally recognized expert on nutrition and natural healing. He specializes in preventing and reversing disease through nutritional methods. Dr. Fuhrman is the president of the Nutritional Research Foundation and on the faculty of the Northern Arizona University Health Sciences Division. He coined the term nutritarian to describe a nutrient-dense eating style designed to prevent cancer, slow aging, and extend lifespan. For over 30 years, Dr. Fuhrman has shown that it is possible to achieve sustainable weight loss and reverse heart disease, diabetes, and many other illnesses using smart nutrition. In his medical practice and through his books and television specials, he continues to bring this life-saving message to hundreds of thousands of people, including yours truly, around the world. Thank you again, Dr. Fuhrman, for your time today.
My
So
pleasure. We would love to start out with a question about the curiosity of where did this passion come from? You've done all these great things in your life. Was this something that you just naturally came to the earth with, or did you develop it from childhood or in med school? Can you tell us a little bit about where this drive started for you? Were you
My
ever overweight?
No, I was never overweight. I was a competitive figure skater. I was
Mm.
actually second in the United States in pair skating in 1973 and third in the world professional pair skating championships in 1976. So I was a serious figure skater in my childhood, but I got into nutrition in my teenage years predominantly because my father was sickly and overweight, and he started reading the books of Herbert Shelton.
Mhm.
And so I got into reading Shelton's books with him. And it did help my father not just lose weight, but get rid of his like arthritis and his urinary his kidney problems. He improved his health dramatically with the change of diet, with changing his diet. But at first, when he started reading this information, I thought he was crazy, and I thought that this could not be true, because how could everybody in the world be wrong and this small group of individuals be right? It's so radical. It's so different. How is that possible? I didn't believe it. We had many long discussions about how um, being correct or being something that's valuable is not to do with how many people adopt the recommendations. You have to have the ability to look and evaluate things on their own merit and weigh the logic and the scientific, weigh science. I had a lot of conversations with my father about this. And, but in any case, a lot of the things that Dr. Shelton taught were incorrect and wrong. But in a lot of ways, he was the first person to, one of the initial founders to be able to have this new way of seeing that we can create our own health destiny, and that suppressing symptoms with dangerous drugs can shorten lifespan and increase the risk of cancer, and that these toxic substances can gradually weaken the body. And the more antibiotics we take in our life and the more drugs we take and the more suppressive therapies we use, it could have an overall cumulative toxic effect on the body in conjunction with other exogenous waste products external waste products we're exposed to, and the toxins we take in through food, and that we are what we eat, and we can control our health destiny by trying to eat cleaner and healthier and being well nourished. And having heart attacks and strokes and cancers are not just the process of aging, not predominantly genetic. They're not a drug deficiency. These diseases are earned, and the body is inherently self-healing, self-protective, and naturally not supposed to get heart disease, strokes, high blood pressure, diabetes, and cancers. We're made not to get, we're made with the ability to keep ourselves living long. And so I learned when I was young to have respect for and appreciation of the body's natural tendency to achieve great health if the right environment was set in place for healing. And I learned that mostly through Dr. Shelton's works. And then in my 20s, I decided to go back to medical school in my late 20s, almost 30 years. I didn't go back to medical school, I was 29. But I decided, yes, I decided to go to medical school with the specific intent to be a physician specializing in nutrition because I was so passionate about what could be done through excellent nutrition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wow. That's it. It says a lot about just, again, you following your passion into this field. And when you found your way so Dr. Shelton is a naturopath and sort of natural medicine pioneer.
Right.
And I love that you recognize, or that you point out that not everything that the early natural medicine movement at the time, not everything that they were espousing was accurate.
Right.
One question came up in my head. Are there things that you have noticed in your career, some of the ways that you've taught that have changed throughout your career that you were teaching at first that have morphed for you now?
Yes, there are certain things I've changed. Absolutely.
Okay.
For example, there's a mistake in my book, Disease Proof Your Child, because when I wrote that book 15 years ago, the belief was that if you hold off exposure to nuts or to beans or to egg or certain food later in life, it'll help reduce allergy by breastfeeding longer and not and delaying the exposure to those things, which we find out now is not correct.
Mhm.
It's better to have earlier introduction of these foods while the breastfeeding is continuing and not to wait to a year or longer to hold off nuts or certain things you might be allergic, because if the mother's eating them and she's nursing at the same time and the child starts eating them while the mother's eating the foods and nursing the foods, there's more protection against allergy. So there's there's an error in that book in regard to trying to delay feeding of nuts, which you shouldn't delay. You should start right when you're introducing solid foods. Just put all those foods right in the diet.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah.
So Dr. Fuhrman, Paige and I we have, in addition to our Real Food Recovery podcast, we have a Real Food Recovery community. And our community works with food addicts in recovery, or folks that have come in and said, you know what, I'm not a fan of the term food addiction, food addict, but I know I have an addiction to foods. I know I can't stop. And we help them look at areas of their life. We call them our branches of recovery, areas of their life that give them dopamine hits that allow them to have outlets other than food. And one of the ways that so many of our members come to us is they come to us deep in the processed foods. So Paige and I talk a lot about how we want our members to come to us and feel like it's a safe place to come in however they're showing up. So we say that we are food plan neutral, but we're processed food free. And we're very intentional about that because we want them to get to a place where they're eating mostly plants. I would say whole food plant-based. And they're eating, single ingredient foods that are nutrient dense and life promoting. That's where we want them to get. But we know that they're not going to come to us that way all the time. So we feel that having that common ground of removing the processed foods is the first step, gets them to a place where they can be open-minded to hearing about, hey, let's reduce those animal products. Let's remove dairy. Let's do those things that we know are health promoting. How has your stance on animal products shifted in your career, or has it shifted in your career?
I'm similar to what you're saying right now, because, even in my book, Eat to Live, which was my most famous and highly publicized, best-selling book, I'd recommend people hold their consumption of animal products to less than 10% of calories, because I felt that I didn't want to make it all about being vegan or not and exclude people who may not want to give up animal products and throw them out and not have them even embrace this at all.
Exactly.
Let's go down to 10% of animal product consumption.
Yeah.
Now, so do I really think that 10% is the ideal level for maximizing human lifespan? Probably not.
Sorry.
It's just an entry point. I'd rather people be below 5%. And, but I still feel that 10% is a great starting point. So people just eat 90% healthy food, and then, so I haven't changed that much, because the question is now, which is healthier, to be totally vegan or use a little bit of animal product in your diet in a very small amount? And that could be argued, but the answer is, what kind of vegan? If the vegan diet is intelligently constructed and supplemented smartly to have adequate DHA and zinc and an iodine, and to watch for these things that a plant-based diet might get from animal products in better source, then probably the vegan diet is more lifespan promoting. But if you're not going to supplement intelligently with the things that you get in a good amount from animal products, maybe it'd be better to have a little bit of animal products to get those accessory nutrients in your diet. So it's somewhat, but we know for sure that we need a large amount of exposure to plant matter to get the phytochemicals and antioxidants that maximally protect us against cancer and to live a really long life, if we're looking to push the envelope of human longevity like that.
Yeah.
I guess.
And one of the things that many of our members come to us with, and I did too, because at one point in my journey, I was 33 years old. I was 450 pounds, or about that. I couldn't really find scales to weigh me because I wasn't really looking for them. I had blown past all of the regular scales, and I did not want to have surgery. I did not want to take pills. I knew that I wasn't going to learn what I had to learn if I took those methods. So I had to learn how to eat truly in a health promoting way. And at the time, Dr. Fuhrman, I was not even thinking I was going to make it to 40, let alone longevity.
Right.
And now here I am 15 years later, maybe selfishly, but wanting to extend my life, wanting to make up for those 33 years that I lost to my addiction. And so for me, I do take some of these details very seriously. And I do have a similar approach as you do in wanting excellence, wanting to maximize nutritional excellence, not just what can I do to get skinny and stay skinny. Right. Because for me, it's I want back in a way, I want back those years, and I want the years that I do have left, whatever they are, to be as healthy as possible and as functional as possible. So we want to kind of go towards this idea of the Fast Food Genocide book, because it does help our members meet us in a place that they can start to understand how the foods they're choosing in their addiction are not just about what's making them overweight or what's giving them acne or something maybe a little more on the surface, but it's truly killing them, and it's truly harming our environment, and it's truly changing the psychology of our society. One meal, one fast food trip at a time. It's absolutely affecting every aspect of our society, from the government to politics to social services, all of it. All of it's being affected, to crime rates. So I just want to take a moment here to intro Fast Food Genocide. Heart attacks, strokes, cancer, obesity, ADHD, autism, allergies, and autoimmune diseases all have the same root cause: our addiction to toxic ingredients. That's a bold statement, Dr. Fuhrman, and I think that statement actually gives me a lot of freedom and a lot of hope. Board certified physician and New York Times bestselling author, Dr. Joel Fuhrman, explains why the problem of poor nutrition is deeper, more serious, and more pervasive than anyone imagined. Fast Food Genocide draws on 25 years of clinical experience and research to confront our fundamental beliefs about the impact of what we eat. The book identifies issues at the heart of our country's most urgent problems. Fast food kills, but it also perpetuates bigotry, derails the American dream of equal opportunity and happiness for all. It leaves behind a wake of destruction, creating millions of medically dependent and sickly people burdened with poor quality lives. The solution is it hides in plain sight. It is a nutrient-dense, healthful diet that saves lives, enabling humans to reach their intellectual potential and achieve successful and fulfilling lives. Dr. Fuhrman offers a life-changing, scientifically sound approach that can alter American history and perhaps save your life in the process. And I really love, Dr. Fuhrman, your intro in this book. It's your dedication. It's dedicated to thousands of people that give back to others across the globe. And that spoke to me because it obviously aligns to the book, but it also aligns to me and to why I feel I got this opportunity to recover without surgery, without medical intervention. I got this opportunity to regain my health and regain my life so that I could teach others and shepherd others along their journey to do the same. So thank you for your work. Tell us what led you to this book.
Well, thank you for that. That's the beautiful thing that you guys stand for. And I just have to say that in my work over the last 35 years, seeing that people have succeeded in losing 100 pounds, 150 pounds, 200 pounds or more, and keeping it off for the rest of their life. It almost always is a person who in some way is giving back to others. It's so often that these people have used their own change to be a role model to positively influence people around them, which is one of the greatest things in life. The greatest opportunities in life is to feel good about ourselves from our ability to reach out and assist others. It makes us feel good about ourselves, and it makes us feel connected. And
Agreed.
all people are equally important. And so being able to see their importance and see them as humans with value and with purpose and with ours to have a positive influence on them by showing that we care about them and not to just give up on them and throw them out the door if they're not achieving or not, but in any case, yes, I applaud what you guys are doing too. And so we really have a shared philosophical outlook that gives us personal satisfaction in life that holds together this community of people to want to live a healthier life. Because unless you have improved, robust emotional health, you're not going to be comfortable being different and eating differently than everybody else is eating. They want to be eating, they're going to the bars and drinking or eating fast foods, and they're going to look at you with distaste, with even negativity. You're not joining them in their addiction. And unless you have emotional health and getting some satisfaction from being a role model of sustaining good health, of enjoying that role model opportunity, you're going to have trouble changing your diet. So when people come here to our retreat in San Diego and stay here for a few months, on their arrival, the first day, we're training them on how to live and how to be happy when they leave. And it's not just about what to eat. It's about how to think and how to feel and how the wisdom you need to have a happy and peaceful life and
how to communicate
Yes,
needs.
Yeah. And not being hurt by what other people are saying or thinking, because you could be proud of what you're doing and you could use everything that people are saying in a negative thing to you. You can use it as an opportunity to in some way show you care about them or to help them redirect their anger or their agitation. And it makes you feel good because you didn't just take it personally. You're not seeing it as an attack against you. You're seeing it as an opportunity to give you a chance to help and to aid another person in some way, even if they're troubled.
That's right.
And even if they're not kind to you, even if they're not being kind to you, it's okay. They don't know it, But in any case, getting back to your original question, that food addiction is so ubiquitous that almost everybody has it because we're trained, because these foods are designed to be addicting.
So true.
And they're constructed by scientists to get people hooked, to like hijack your taste and make you no longer like real food. So now you have to want those foods, which then, of course, as you know, because of the caloric rush, I'm talking about this term caloric rush, which means it's impossible to get so many calories in the bloodstream at one time that can have such a dramatic stimulating effect on dopamine receptors in the brain. It's an oversimplification. It's not only dopamine receptors, but in other words, the caloric rush, getting it with oils and sweets and processed foods, putting so many calories into the bloodstream at one time, makes people habituated and uncomfortable unless they go after that excessive caloric exposure.
right.
Now, having a plate of salad, a bowl of vegetable bean soup, and a couple of apples is not enough food. They got to have something more concentrated. They got to have some French fries, some pizza, some ice cream. They got to have something because they didn't get enough. They didn't get enough rush into their system from that, and they feel unsatisfied. The body is almost intolerant of normal amount of calories. They only feel normal if they exceed their caloric needs. And so it is it's somewhat an addiction in almost everybody who's overweight, because they also think that fatigue is a symptom of, they think fatigue is a symptom of hunger.
Hunger.
And they think they're eating to keep their energy up, and they need to eat to get more energy. And that's another vicious cycle, because the fatigue is the symptom of withdrawal from overeating and poor eating. And they goes away when you eat more food, the same way you snorting cocaine goes away if you have more cocaine, or having nicotine makes the withdrawal go away. So food then becomes the avenue which people are seeking energy from.
Right.
And why could they need to seeking energy if they're overweight?
Yeah,
The whole thing is
overfed,
based on a
undernourished.
misunderstanding. Yeah, it's all based on misunderstanding, misinterpretation, and haven't given the right they haven't been given the right science to know how to derail this vicious cycle.
Which this is a good place to ask you, do you care if I read the first the first paragraph of your book, which by far stood out? I've underlined it. I've dog-eared the page. My favorite paragraph of the whole book is this first one. So if you don't mind, I'd like to
Love
read
that.
that.
Thank you.
Processed, fake, and fast foods have become the primary source of calories in this country, and they're on track to become the same in other countries. This attachment to fast food over natural foods and fresh produce is moving us towards widespread chronic disease, mental illness, and shortened lifespans. I believe that the growing fast food addiction in this country and abroad is a genocide, as these foods destroy life with frightening efficiency, and this damage is worsening. The food industry has evolved to effectively feed the majority of our citizens with mass-marketed, factory-produced foods that do not have the biological and chemical properties of natural produce. The result is the destruction of human potential. Blew me away, along with an explosion of chronic illness, human suffering, and the premature death of millions. Mic drop. I mean, you summed up everything right there. And I was so fascinated on some of the points that you made between the correlation between the food deserts, which I think is a fascinating subject. And I would love to hear if you have an answer to that, between food deserts and violent crime in those areas. And there was another point you made about the low socioeconomic areas of, I think, the African American and Hispanic and Alzheimer's. So those were some connections that I were not aware of. But do you want to talk about food deserts a little bit? I think that's such an interesting topic, and love to hear if you have solutions to that.
Sure. It is. It's very important. It's a very important concept that people aren't aware that the consumption of sweets and candy and fast food is not only linked to diabetes, heart disease, and cancer. It's also linked to mental illness, depression, anger, agitation, frustration, lack of success in school, lack of education, and promotes violent crime. There's a link between, I discuss studies in the book which discuss the link between candy consumption in childhood and the chance of being arrested for a drug-related offense or a violent crime by the time they're 36 years old. And in the highest quintile of candy consumption, the chance of being arrested for drug abuse, illegal drug use or violence was 60%, more than 60% chance of being arrested for, and that correlation was stronger than it was for having abusive parenting or being raised in an orphanage or having low socioeconomic status. So we're talking here about that food doesn't just destroy, that unhealthy food doesn't just destroy our body, it destroys our mind. And I gave an example of the lynching of blacks and the violence against blacks in the South due to the high incidence of pellagra, which causes a rash around the neck called a causal necklace, or called rednecks, but they blamed back in the 1850s, 1840s, 1850s to early 1900s, they still thought pellagra was a disease of genetics, that of male Caucasians, and these violent were put in, a lot of the people with pellagra were put in prison because of their propensity to violence and anger.
Hmm.
They were responsible for not the only reason for the contempt and racism against blacks and the lynching of blacks, but all the attacks. But some of the violence was definitely enhanced by poor nutrition because there was so many because Caucasians are eating pork and molasses and corn and having niacin deficient and phytochemical deficiencies. And I brought it up because we're seeing it over again today. We're seeing the fast food movement, the lack of vegetables, the lack of exposure to phytochemicals and plant-derived nutrients lead to a propensity for anger, violence, illogical, irrational thinking, and of course the lack of socioeconomic ability to reach your human potential in parts of the country where they eat the worst. There's more murders, more crime, poor economic advancement, and more in people eating poorly of all races. And I demonstrated that it's not about your color of your skin. It's about your exposure to good nutrition. And the Black Americans were having much better economic outcome and much better health outcomes when they were eating more vegetables. But then when the fast food industry, when they were driven out of the South due to the Jim Crow laws and violence in the South and into enclaves in the North, where they didn't have access to gardens and planting vegetables, that's when the problem started. Just like so, in any case, and the Hispanic effect, where Hispanics living in food deserts don't have as bad an outcome as blacks do, also was drilled down to find out it was because they were eating more beans in their diet and the black. It still became down to diet, not due to genetic differences. It's not a color of our skin. It's not our genes. It's what we're eating. And when we expose people to better nutrition, they have better educational outcomes. They become more peaceful. They can think more logically, and they reach their human and educational potential.
Absolutely.
So, and one of the ways they got these people out of prison was to feed them better and put vegetable gardens in the prisons. And then when a doctor finally discovered in 1910 that pellagra causing all these people to be put in prisons from violent behavior, they started feeding them vegetables. They started to be able to release from prison and no longer be violent.
Wow.
Yeah. Amazing.
So, and it's only an important part of medical history because obviously you know what's going on in this country with political extremism, conspiracy thinking, believing in nonsensical, inability to weigh rational thought and to weigh evidence,
everywhere. It's everywhere.
and propensity to anger and violence due to poor nutrition.
Do
And I've
you
seen this
have an answer to the food desert situation? A simple answer? Probably no.
Well, there's no simple answer, but I did describe in the book that when efforts were made to improve the situation in food deserts, it works. You see better outcomes, better health outcomes, better educational achievement. You see it works. Like, for example, we can give many examples. When in New York, when they started allowing the food vendors in their carts to go into poor areas and take food stamps on vegetable food carts, we immediately saw better outcomes and improvement in health and reduction in crime and things like that. So we definitely see when educational effort is being spent, when effort is spent to make food more available and to make healthy food more available, when you're teaching people about that. In other words, let me give you another example. When we started teaching children in the classroom about the dangers of smoking, it finally had an effect. So adults started smoking less.
Yeah.
When we started bringing it into the children, because the children brought it home to the parents, and the parents have to, and you have to teach it from all aspects of society, from getting the young and the old. Not just, we can't say just go to a doctor and have a doctor tell you to quit smoking once you develop lung cancer. We just can't go to a doctor and then once you develop high blood pressure and heart disease, the doctor tells you to cut out the salt and cut out the junk. No, the kids should be learning this. If it's right to cut back on salt and junk food that causes heart disease, then it shouldn't be do it when we have heart disease.
Right.
We should do it before we get heart disease. And so it has the best impact on society when it infiltrates the educational system at all aspects, not just at the adults or the medical profession, but the PTA, the school system, the educational system, so the whole thing, it's a whole societal, moving all of society in the right direction through proper education. And opportunity means the opportunity to have real food to have a normal lifespan and to have a normal life.
Yes,
and so giving people equal opportunity means an equal opportunity to be able to purchase real food and the importance of doing so.
Do you think we're making progress?
we've made some progress, and there was progress being made under the Obama administration. And when Trump came in, he took away all the progress and put the junk food back in the schoolroom and took away so there was progress being made, but unfortunately it was undone by by a lot of administrative orders made by the Trump administration.
Do you think that's because of the deep connections between the food industry and the government?
I think it's this. I don't know for sure all the political reasons why we have to give why we have to give class 2 carcinogens in the form of processed meats to children in schoolrooms and things like that. Why they took out, because all other parts of the world, we don't let class 1A carcinogens processed meats being given to kids. Now they put it back in the schools again.
Yeah.
I think it has to do with some idea that we shouldn't be telling people the government shouldn't be telling people what to live, what to eat, how to live. If they want to smoke, drink, or eat junk food, let them do whatever they want is part of the political platform.
Mhm.
But I think that that if that was the case, then it has to be incorporated with education as to why it's not. You can't just put cigarettes in the classroom unless you educate people why not to smoke them. If you want to get people back, if you want to feed kids cigarettes and carcinogens, then you got to educate them as to why these things are linked in scientific studies.
Yeah.
But that may in some way impact certain parts of the economic system too, because some people making unhealthy food or pastrami, bologna, bacon, or whatever it is they want, hot dogs, are going to be impacted negatively.
Right.
Yes, I think that. But again, I think it's the poor nutrition that lets people think in a more narcissistic way, where only their own self-power and their own monetary or possessions become important. Their lack of ability to care, to have compassion, to relate to other people that are more suffering. I think it's all mixed into this type of present political viewpoints.
Yeah, it would be nice if all processed food came with warning labels as well, right?
Yeah. But I'm saying here that I think that that when you're a food addict or a drug addict, you become more narcissistically consumed with your own physical needs.
That's right.
Because other people and other needs of other people don't matter as much as you needing your need for those addictive substances. Your fix comes first. When you're a drug addict, you can steal, cheat, lie, right? And a lot of these people, a lot of the population has become addicted to food, drink, alcohol, and processed foods in a way that affects the brain. And it affects the brain to be more narcissistically consumed with your own needs. And that itself is an addiction.
Absolutely.
But narcissistically consumed with power at the expense of where hurting other people don't matter. It's only your personal power that matters.
Yes.
And so it's mixed in with food and the socialization process in America, where we're looking to achieve superiority over others, to develop self-esteem. We got to look the best. We got to be the richest. We got to have the most. We're not looking to build our self-esteem on our ability to relate to and care about other people and to sympathize with trying to. So in other words, our self-esteem becomes somewhat selfishly induced with being superior to others. And that it really is just an ever-ending bottomless pit of trying to achieve more power over others, which never gives you true sasatisfaction.
Yeah.
You never and you're always doubting yourself and wanting more. And
it's driven out of the need really just to get out of pain. These people that are looking for substances, another hit, another hit, another hit, because it's been so down-regulated. Our reward pathways have been so down-regulated. They're really not trying to get high as much as just get out of the pain, right? And get back to homeostasis, don't you think?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so painful not to get that hit.
Right.
Because you feel fatigued and agitated and irritated. And you can't function. And then it doesn't even work, because in a little while you get fatigued again and you start to.
That's right.
We have people come to our retreat who they have enforced abstinence from addictive substance by eating healthfully. And when they first get here, some of them can be agitated the first week and be irritable, because they're now irritable. They can't get their fix and they're agitated and they're angry. But it's amazing how their personalities change.
Yes.
They become interested and loving and more appreciative of the world around them and grateful and looking at the beauty of nature. And they start to develop a different personality when they get a month or two later, a month after their food addiction, and they've started to change their taste preferences. It's amazing how their personalities change in a favorable way when they get physically and biochemically healthier.
Correct. Yeah. One of the ways that I think this dovetails directly into another topic that is, I think, intimately engaged with what you're talking about. And I can say, in my experience in recovery, I had a totally different personality when I was in the food than I do now. I was irritable all the time. I was prone to rages about things that were just that today don't even land on
Yeah,
my radar.
right.
I remember feeling emotionally imbalanced, and I couldn't understand why. I thought it was related to the way I was raised. I thought it was related to genetics. I thought it was, oh, because my dad was this way or my mom was that way. I didn't understand that it was the food, and their food addictions were showing up, and alcohol addictions were showing up in their behavior, and I had adopted the same. So once I found recovery and started to eat in a clean way, all of those things balanced out. And I didn't have to worry about this constant battle of depression and anxiety and anger and irritability. And all of it went away. I became much more easily compassionate, and was able to relate to others in a way, getting out of self and serving them instead of putting my needs or my withdrawal
Right.
first, which is
Right.
essentially what I was doing for 33 years. Uh,
Yeah, absolutely.
when we think about addiction, you've talked about this topic of socioeconomic impacts, but let's talk about from addictions related effects on or related to childhood trauma. Um, how are they connected? Are they connected? Or could food addiction be a result of cultural conditioning and repeated exposure over decades?
Where does
Well,
it come from?
all those things are true. Uh,
Yes.
Both.
you got to unpack that, but yeah, I mean, we're living in a society where food addiction is the norm, and kids are turned into addicts at a young age. They're given, instead of giving food, which is like pineapple and string beans and broccoli and nuts and and things like that, or they're given goldfish and Fruit Loops and fast food and French fries and chip. They're given junk food at a young age, which immediately makes them a picky eater. Now immediately they don't want natural food anymore.
Nope.
Because if you test it with an animal, with a chimp or with a rabbit, you start to feed them food with more concentrated calories that are highly palatable with highly flavors of salt and sugar. They're not going to eat their standard food because comparatively the taste is not as strong. And then they're going to start to develop a desire for this caloric rush, for the
Mhm.
high, level of calories in this. And now the animal becomes, it's funny because I was once in around NYU in New York City, around the park where there was a McDonald's right there, and people used to sit on the benches outside of McDonald's and feed it to the squirrels. And you would see obese squirrels that could hardly even move, living on French fries. They'd be giving French fries to the squirrels. There's no obese squirrels in nature. There's no, and the same thing with humans. There's no overweight humans in a natural environment. You always joke and say that, now you can file, you're shipwrecked on a desert island. Now you can finally follow Dr. Fuhrman's diet. But the point is there's no, all animals are almost the same weight, and they go to the similar lifespans too, unless they're killed by another animal or have an accident or something. Their natural lifespans are similarly. But here we're bringing up the point that we're indoctrinated into this food addiction culture at a very young age. But certainly that's exacerbated by childhood trauma and parental narcissism and parental selfishness. That can, so because when your child, is being traumatically or emotionally abused, then it can exacerbate their tendency towards anxiety and depression and unhappiness, and then using the overuse of addictive substances become even worse. You know what I mean? So all those things are interrelated. And so compassion and showing people, trying to control other people, trying to force behaviors, way of thinking on them, to try to put them into a way that's, punishing them for being who they are. With my kids, for example, um, we wanted them to eat healthfully, and we certainly raised them in an environment and a role model of healthy food. But when they left the house, they were educated but they weren't
Yeah.
like controlled in a way, punished if they didn't do what we wanted them to do.
Yeah.
But they understood the desire to want to be healthy because they, even at a young age, they could see the concept of living healthily, and they desired it, and they liked eating healthy food. They liked the food we made because they were raised on it.
Right.
So these things are very complicated because very people fall back on their comfort foods they were given as children as a means of giving them solace and comfort in a
Mhm.
painful and confusing world.
Yeah.
A painful and confusing world where people are treated unjustly or are attacked unfairly or not given a chance to be to so and then then medicating ourselves with substances like alcohol and drugs or food
Is
becomes the norm.
Yeah.
creates the problem.
Yeah, that's what I think. I just was exposed from an early age, and I'm like, I like this. This is good. And
Yeah.
so I love your recommendation about kind of educating people and then meeting them where they are. If I understand what you're saying, like with the nutritarian diet, I have a little bit of animal products in my life, and I'm not 100% plant-based, but I'm leaning, as I'm learning more, as you talked about the education, as I'm learning more, I'm crowding that out and implementing more plants. But as we know, with addiction, it's very hard to make changes. And I was even thinking about your retreat groups that you have and how you said people's personalities change. I
Yes.
bet there's been a person or two who has left and not stayed the whole time. Is that true? Because it's so hard to make that change.
No, I don't think they
Oh,
have.
good. That's
You
good.
know,
I just didn't know how desperate people get when they're like, I got to get out of here and get to
they
drive
do.
to
The
dinner.
people have said to me they've looked for annoyance in things. Their bed's not smooth enough. A new mattress will get you a new mattress. They whatever they've looked for reasons why they wanted to leave, and they've said they're leaving. But in going and speaking to them, I've said to them, this is to be expected to have these feelings. We'll do
Yeah.
what we're going to accommodate you. We're here because we want. So I eventually usually convince them to stay. You
People are
know,
always looking for that third door.
yeah, they were looking for a third door, but I can't. I'm trying to think of anyone who left prematurely. Um, Maybe they left a week earlier. No, not really. I mean, they left
Oh,
because maybe they had a
good.
tooth problem. They had to go fix their dentist or something, but usually they stay. And we do make people make a commitment, to staying a long time because we feel when you go to these health retreats for a week or so and you turn, or even 2 or 3 weeks, there's the chance of recidivism is too high going back to their environment. We keep them here for at least a month, but preferably 2 or 3 months because we know that we're training their mind and their body.
Absolutely.
And I'm getting them off their diabetic drugs, off their high blood pressure medications, off all their medical problems are going away, and they need me to wean them down. But they see the magic start to happen,
Mhm.
and 75% of them have no more diabetes in the first 3 weeks. The diabetes is gone.
Yeah.
So it's really very reinforcing, and they start to. But in any case, I see what you're talking about. That it's not easy, and the person needs a lot of support emotionally, and the information and support they need, and the wisdom to help them get through this, to see that their life's going to be so much better. I had a girl who came here. She was 19 and weighed 380 pounds, and she did not want to be here. She was here because she was forced to be here by her parents.
Oh,
And she said to us when she came in, there's no way she's going to live this way. This is a waste of her time. She recreates with food and she's not. But she was here a full 3 months. She lost 80 pounds in the 3 month period. And when she went home, and by the time she was here a couple of months, she was helping out. She loved the food. Her taste buds changed. She was able to concentrate and focus and read and get back to her college courses again.
Yes.
But she couldn't do it anymore. She couldn't focus on any, and
Oh, I bet.
then she went home and went back to work and went back to, getting education and getting work and going and continuing to lose weight and
Yeah.
didn't go back to her old way of eating. So her
Yeah.
parents forcing her to be here actually worked.
Isn't that now? So one of the things that I was going to ask you about, G-bombs, and I think that that's important to ask, but I wonder, so again, G-bombs, for those who are listening, who are not familiar with Dr. Fuhrman's work, is greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, and seeds. And he advocates for these different nutrients and components, dietary components in our diet every day, or at least throughout the week, but eventually every day. How does acronyms like GBOMS and some of the other principles help your patients transition from that in-person intensive inpatient experience to home support?
Right. Well, you're right. It's that they've learned how to eat, but they know the skeleton of the diet, that they stick to the same skeleton over time. Like the skeleton of the diet is this. For lunch, they're always having a big salad, a bowl of vegetable bean soup, and some fruit for dessert. It may be a different salad dressing on the salad, maybe a little different ingredients to it. It may be a different type of soup, and it may be a different fruits that are in season, or different frozen cherries, or jackfruit, whatever it is I'm eating. But the point is, it's soup, it's a salad, a soup, and and some fruit for lunch. And it's easy to go home when you keep the same rhythm going. Breakfast is always similar. It's like it's not that difficult to do it. They have 3 or 4 salad dressing recipes they love. They picked it out of maybe 20 of them, but now they picked the 4 they like the best. They don't need a million recipes.
Yep.
For breakfast, they're having a half a cup of whole grain with a cup of berries or other fruit, with a tablespoon, a heaping tablespoon of ground seeds like flax seeds, chia seeds, or hemp seeds, with a low sweetened plant milk on it. And they have so they know it's pretty regimented. And dinner, they have their raw vegetables with a dip, a hummus dip, a guacamole dip, a salsa dip, one of the delicious dips with some other raw vegetables they eat at lunch. And they have their cooked vegetable, their wok vegetable meals, the green vegetables, the bean burger or whatever. They have a host of different Thai curry sauces or wraps or tortillas. They can pick which and learn in the cooking classes, and to leave here with some things they really love. So they have their business plan set up, but they still have figured out the caloric window for them, what works for them. Get that 2 or 3 pounds of weight loss a week. They know how much to eat. They know what they're eating. If they know they know how to, they know a bunch of desserts they love and dessert's not bad. Dessert is good because it marked end of eating for the day.
Exactly.
They had a little dessert at the finish of eating, and they're not going to eat anymore that day. They're going to clean their teeth, put the food away, and stay away from food until the next morning. So, and so their taste buds change. They get the dietary skeleton in place, but they get the wisdom teaching how to be happy internally. Which then makes them be able. So we work on their emotional intelligence and all the extra, including meditation, and to help them be at peace with themselves. And they're here practicing. They're practicing liking the world and appreciating reality and having fun and learning how to play and learning how the balance of our life is, work and play and food and rest and sleep and exercise, to get that right balance, to go home with the right type of a balanced lifestyle that's going to support them. So we do that as you're doing it. You don't have to come to my retreat to get this teaching, obviously, but it makes it, some people do need to be here, but frankly, but people can learn it on their own. They can learn it with books and videos, and people support them like you and me, and the teachings we offer people and support we offer them. And so most people can use the knowledge and experience to gain benefit and do this in their own lives at their home. But it helps if they have supportive people around them in a local community. It helps if their family is supporting them. It helps if they're, when you quit smoking, everybody supports you. Keep the ashtrays away and, keep the cigarettes out of the house, and applaud this person for no longer smoking and drinking. But it's not always the same when people change their diet. You get people trying to sabotage you.
Yeah, because they're uncomfortable and you're making them feel guilty.
Because they're addicts too. They're not food addicts, and they're not trying
Oh
to.
yeah, it's their own issue.
Yeah,
We're not doing anything to them. It's their own issue, their own feelings of inadequacy and their own doubting of self that they're projecting onto us by criticizing our food choice.
Right.
Yeah, you bring up a good point about we teach a lot about, until you get these addictive foods out of your life, you really can't know your true authentic self, what your interests are, what your joys are, how you want your life to look when you're so riddled with those drugs. You've got one focus. Your addiction is always work in the room, and it is a constant distraction of where it wants your thoughts to go. So I appreciate your point. And I like that you tell people you don't, not everyone, it's not accessible, your retreat for everyone. So I appreciate you saying this can be done on your own. Do you have like one book that you recommend above others for a place to start?
Yeah, well, I do think probably my most recent book has the most recent science because there's so much, data and people's getting impressions of being told things that to believe. So I think the most recent book and the most recent research is called Eat for Life, is the most, it's just because it's the most recent with the most updated medical references. And then if they want to pick up, one of my food that talks more about addiction, such as fast food genocide or the end of dieting,
Yeah.
the good adjunct. I have some of my most, so I have books on various subjects, but they have similar information in them.
Yeah.
The end of dieting, the end of diabetes, the end of heart disease, superimmunity, fast food genocide, and Eat for Life. There's
Yeah.
some overlap, but I do like people to read more than one book if they could. It's good at
As you
reinforcing,
should. As
and
you should.
then of course to develop some support, to have support and
Yes.
proclaim it to the world. In other words,
Right.
I'm saying I'm going to quit smoking and I'm going to tell everybody I'm going to quit smoking. And I'm
Mhm.
proud of that. Then I'm going to help you support me and don't try to sabotage me. And I'm going to stop eating junk food and I'm going to start eating healthfully. And I want you to know that this is a choice I'm making right now. And I want you to support me and not sabotage me and not tempt me. And you don't have to join me in this thing, but I've made this decision for myself. And I'm making a commitment. I'm making a commitment to do this. And by announcing that, it helps people stay with the commitment by being proud of their ability to make that commitment and to stay on and to honor it.
I agree with that. And what I call that, I say it's a verbal contract. It's
Yes.
more binding. It makes it more binding when you speak it out loud.
Yes.
Agreed. 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 So one of the things that I think you've done so beautifully, Dr. Fuhrman, is you've paid it forward, not only with you and your practice and your retreats, and of course, all the time that you spend at specials you've done, but you've also paid it forward in giving to the next generation. You've been so supportive of your daughters and their doctors' daughters movement, all from when they were battling and talking about their recovery from teenage afflictions like acne all the way now to when they're in their 20s and 30s, and really creating this life for themselves, for all of the other folks that sort of share their generation. They've become pioneers like their dad, but they've done it in a way that they've tried to make some more relatable, recognizable foods, and we saw them represented on your site. So you have, these product lines that are related to some of the food that your daughters are trying to socialize. How do these come about? How do they fit in with that nutritarian lifestyle?
Well, it's really a pleasure to have my kids, support what I do and to join that enthusiasm and passion, right? Have you seen any of my my Eat to Live podcast with my daughter Jenna?
Yes.
No, I've not.
Oh, you should definitely. It's really great the fact that people like the fact that you have this father-daughter thing where it's like, going on. It's kind of cute. And then my daughter Kara is still in naturopathic school. She's finishing up this year, and she's certainly going to help me at the retreat in my career once she graduates. And she's been a huge part in developing her food line and development. She's a great chef, and a great healthy chef developing all these extra food products that are so
Wow.
cool. It's funny because she was a little kid. She'd invite her friends over and like make them healthy stuff then. Showing people you can make healthy stuff taste good. You know what I mean? Be proud of that kind of stuff.
Very
And so,
sweet.
Did they come back?
all
come
three of my daughters enjoyed that, but their friends used to say, I got to teach my parents how to make this. This stuff is great.
Oh,
I love it.
Like the friends liked it, always liked. We made like fudgesicle pops, in a Tupperware thing that would pull out, made of carob and cashews and banana, frozen banana. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And so we make all kinds of, Anyway, so my kids were always involved in recipe development and helped me with recipe development. And now they're,
Do you create all your own? I mean, you provide a ton of recipes in here. Are you the creator of that?
Well, I have more than 2,000 recipes on the website too, on my
Yeah.
website.
Incredible.
Yeah, I've created many over the years. Many I've had people that were people members and other people who were sent them to me, and I've had chefs, world-class chefs, develop recipes for me. that are in some of my books. So they've been a mixture, a whole combination of family, my wife, my kids, famous chefs, people who are just nutritarian members, and people submitting me recipes. Of course, we've developed such an incredible collection to make healthy food taste great. So we're not feeling we're deprived in any way. We're eating delicious food, and that our bodies have now adapted to, that make us feel good and keep us feeling good, that we like to eat. I'm eating the way I want people to develop the idea of that they're eating what they feel like eating and what they want to eat and the amount they want to eat. But what they feel like eating and what they want to eat and the amount they want to eat is what's right for them now. They're not driven to eat things that are not good for them. They like things that are good for them better than they like things that are bad for them at this point. And that's the whole point of what's achievable,
Yeah. One of the things that I noticed about some of the products, the food products on your site, I noticed the bars. Of course, the food addict in me noticed the bars.
Yeah.
So I noticed that they, were designed around names like lemon cookie bars, etc. How, and even if they've got these, healthy whole ingredients in them, what kind of reception have you received on these, the names, the bars? Are you finding that even the name can be enticing in a negative way, or is it really something, hey, once they eat it and they realize it can remind them of a lemon cookie, but it doesn't have the same effect as a lemon cookie?
Right. I think that's the idea, is that because a lot of people know about healthy eating and know about my viewpoints, but they don't want to go that far or eat that healthfully, and they're not even, a lot of them are just unhealthy, not looking to lose weight. But the bars that are out there, and the kale chips that are out there, and the sauces that are out there full of salt, and the curry sauce that out there is full of oil, and the ketchups that are out there are full of sugar. And I just want to make them some things that they can put on sauces or things, or have a bar for dessert that's going to be a better choice for them, or a better version. So mine, for example, might have 6 grams of sugar in it instead of one that has 26 grams of sugar in it for the same bar. You know what I mean? And it's going to put some berries and beans in there. That's good for you. But there's no sugar in it except for a little date. But the point is that I'm giving people the opportunity to stay with their healthy eating and still have some delectable treats in their diet. And also it's to make people's lives easier, because the other thing is they don't have time to cook and prepare food. Okay, so I've got for you a Thai curry sauce, a mushroom Alfredo sauce, a salad dressing. Just put it on just cook some vegetables in a wok. Takes 10 minutes, and pour some sauce on top. You got a meal there. It's no big deal.
Exactly.
So I'm trying to make it easy for people, so there's no ramp at which they can't have to try to get out. They can do this easily and make it taste good.
Yeah, better compliance.
Yeah.
So before we leave, I'm going to ask you one last question. Do you have one piece of advice over another, your greatest piece of advice for people on their health journey? Do you have one piece of advice that is more powerful than anything else?
I don't know for sure the answer to that question, but I usually say that but one of my mantras is to tell people to have a big salad at least once a day as a main dish. So I think that telling people that the lunch is the most critically important meal of the day, because people's breakfast is, easy not to go out and pig out at breakfast. You could still do it, but it's easier to eat healthy, have a little oatmeal and fruit and stuff. And so the lunch, when you're out of the house, when you're tempted by other food, when you're people around you with boxes of donuts, it's very important to bring a healthy lunch with you. And having a big salad that's filling with a healthy dressing and a bowl of vegetable bean soup and some fruit for dessert, making that lunch consistently healthy and taking the time to have that at least one big salad a day, which you chew very well. And, so I think that's a critical element as the great starting point to people to bettering their health. They've got to have a big salad and have those raw vegetables every day.
I couldn't agree more.
That must have been successful for you, because that is as you said, the skeleton. Is that the word you use for your program and your retreat?
Right.
So, Dr. Fuhrman, we want to honor your time. Thank you. Thank you. This has been truly a privilege, and we just can't thank you enough for your wisdom and for your contributions. And you, as I said to you in my very first email, your work has saved my life. And so I'm deeply grateful to you. Even though I've never met you, sir, I am deeply grateful.
I'm grateful to be knowing you, to knowing about what you're doing, and to seeing how you're taking my work and moving it forward to help people is such a blessing, and I'm so happy to know about you guys and what you're doing. Fantastic. So I'm so appreciative of you too.
Thank you so much. And if you want to know more about us, you can find us at realfoodrecovery4u.com. That's the number 4, the letter u.com. And we hope to see you there. And again, one final very big thank you to Dr. Fuhrman. Thank you for being here and hope to see you again. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Okay.